Welcome back to the Tone Show. Today I'm going to be reviewing Caddo Lake, which is a Max original. This is a movie that you should go in blind. Like, this is one of those few movies that I really think going in completely blind is what you should do. Do not watch any other reviews if they spoil anything. A lot of reviews are going to even let things out of the bag that might spoil the experience for you. So I really recommend you go into this one blind. There's your warning. I'm going to spoil the movie. Okay, so Caddo Lake is directed and written by Celine Held and Logan George, are the director slash writer duo of this movie. It's produced by M. Night Shyamalan. The movie centers around a teenage girl who basically has a lot of issues with her family. Her mother is married to her stepdad, and her stepdad has an 8-year-old girl, so her stepsister, her name is Anna. So Ellie cannot get along with them, and looks like every night she runs off to a friend's house. And basically Anna, she feels a lot of trauma in this because her older stepsister is leaving, and it looks like there's a lot of chaos at the home, and the mom is struggling to get along with her husband and her stepdaughter and her daughter. And something else that's important to know is that looks like in the past there was some type of domestic violence there. Ellie and her mom Celeste are also traumatized by the fact that Ellie's dad left them when she was a baby. Now, in Ellie's view, he went missing. In her mom Celeste's view, he abandoned the family. So there's a big difference there. And that's more trauma to the whole situation with Ellie. Now, there's another storyline in the movie, which is that of Paris. Paris is a 20-something-year-old man. And in the beginning of the movie, we see that he's in a truck with his mom, or a car, and they drive off a bridge, and he's the only one, unfortunately, who ends up saving himself. His mother ends up drowning. Later on, it's revealed that his mother suffered from these seizures, and he himself, every now and then, his hands trembles. And I guess he has a fear that there might be some genetic aspect to this or component. Feels that his mother was misdiagnosed. And if he can only get to the truth of why his mother was having these seizures, maybe her true condition, maybe he'll know what actually caused the accident that day. So there's two narratives that are going throughout the whole film, which is Paris trying to find out what was his mother really suffering from that caused her to lose control of her car. He even goes and visits the doctor who was treating her, and he tells her, like, there has to be something else. And he's basically saying, well, we went through this already. Your mother knew she had a condition. She shouldn't have been driving. But Paris is basically driven by somehow he feels by finding the answers to this, he'll be whole. And Paris's father's alive, and he's an older man. You can see that he's hurt and he's come to terms with this, but his son, for some reason, will not let go. He's employing his own son, by the way, in a company which works on the lake, Caddo Lake, which is a real lake in the United States here between Louisiana and Texas. There's two storylines, like I said. So Ellie and her family, and then we have Paris' storyline. One of the big reveals about this movie, which the director and writers did this masterfully, one of the big reveals that blew my brain is that later on in the movie, you realize that these are actually two different timelines. These two narratives are not happening in 2022. So Ellie's timeline is actually 2022, and Paris's timeline is 2003. And that's something that the movie doesn't let go of until, like, deep in the movie. And that was mind blowing, because you think these two people are living the same time, and they're not. So Paris's events actually happen way before Ellie's events. And later on, when Anna goes missing, looks like she ran after Ellie at one point because Ellie had another problem with her family, and she went to sleep at her friend's house, and Anna left. So when Anna leaves, looks like she got lost on her boat, and she ended up in a weird part of the lake. Now, the lake itself is a character in this movie. And the thing about the lake that we find out is that every few years, the water recedes, and there's a piece of land that's exposed when the water goes out. And this piece of land is where the time phenomenon, or like time divergence, occurs. So when the characters find themselves on this piece of land, which only happens when the water pulls back, is when they have like this weird phasing that looks like affects them physically. Looks like going through this time phase has physical effects, bad effects on people, because you see that Paris's hand starts to shake. Ellie has these nosebleeds. Then later in the film, we find out the reason that Paris's mother had these seizures her whole life is because she is actually Anna, who got lost on her boat and ended up in this particular piece of land where the time divergence happens. And she ended up injured somehow with a tree that pierced her body, and a tree branch. And she ended up in 1952. So we find out that being inside the time divergence has physical health effects. And the reason his mother always had these seizures is because for her whole life she lived it in the wrong timeline. So it looks like those shakes that Paris is having and the nosebleed that Ellie's having, if they stayed longer in those wrong time periods, they too would suffer from these seizures. So Anna goes missing. She goes on a boat. Her family freaks out. So Ellie goes on a boat herself looking for Anna. The movie gives us little clues and tidbits at the beginning, saying that people have the people are seeing wolves, which are not native to that land, on that land, and people think that those people are making that up. Those wolves end up being, and the weird butterflies are from a different time period, from the past. That they're actually going through the time divergence land when the water recedes, and they end up in the current timeline. That's how those animals are being seen throughout the movie. But it's not until later in the movie that I realize that all those things that are not supposed to be there on that land are coming through that same time divergence. So his mother, Anna, who is the little girl herself, we find out that his mom, she lived her whole life. So one of the great things about this movie is that in the beginning of the movie, when they show you the drowning of Anna, you're actually seeing the end of the movie because her character lived the whole life. Since we're dealing here with time travel, the beginning of the movie, everything has already happened basically. So Paris never really had a chance. And one of the things that this movie tackles, which is interesting to me, is that in this particular time travel, it looks like you can't undo time. Like you can only move forward. So everything that happened. Paris's mother drowned. He couldn't definitely change that. And if he did, for example, manage to take her, she had always drowned in the past. So the fact that we saw those events happen in the beginning of the movie, they were kind of set, kind of describes. And this movie is really mature in the sense that it trusts the viewer. It doesn't explain anything. I love that. You don't get any explanations at all. Like they basically trust you to be a big boy. I actually stopped in the middle of the movie, paused it. I was like, wow, my mind was blown. I realized that Anna, the 8-year-old little girl, ended up being the mother of Paris. Not only that, it changed the whole dynamic of all the relationships. So Ellie, the whole movie, she's upset that her mom, Celine, has a new husband and a new stepdaughter, but she's always like, these are not my family. But it turns out that he is her family. Her stepdad is actually her great grandfather because since Anna is the mother of her father, obviously, Paris, and her mom turns out to be that in all the shots that we saw with Paris and his girlfriend, that she's trying to go off to San Francisco or Seattle, I think it is. We find out that that young woman that Paris is with the whole big part of the movie, that's actually Elle's mother Celeste when she was younger. And when Elle finally finds the time divergence area, she goes through it. She finds like a local market, and there she finds a truck, and in that truck is a necklace. The necklace is important because the necklace is worn by Paris's mother, and it's also worn by Anna when she's an 8-year-old girl. And it turns out that it looks like she wore it her whole life, basically. And what's important is because when both characters, when Ellie and Paris find the necklace, both of them are basically struck by this. Now, as a viewer, the whole time I'm thinking maybe it's a necklace or maybe it was a set of necklace. But then you find out that the whole time it's always been the same necklace that Paris, his mom, obviously Anna, lived their whole life as a teacher, lived till 55, and had the necklace all along. So when he finds the necklace, that's why he's drawn to it, because it's the same necklace his mother wore. And Ellie, when she sees Anna's necklace in the truck, that truck ends up being owned by her mom when she was a younger woman. And the baby that the mother's actually holding is actually Ellie herself when she was a baby. That blew my mind. That was really written well. And then she goes into the internet cafe, which is if you're my age, you remember those. And she does some Googling and realizes that Anna, since she was 55 years old when she died, she subtracts that from her age when she was gone and the year that she's currently living in. They're in 2003. And she figures out basically that Anna lived her whole life. She had a happy life. Looked like she was happy. She was married. She had a son. And that son ends up being her dad, which is Paris. So Paris, when he figures out what's finally happened, he ends up in the future in 2002, which is Ellie's time. And his father at this point, he's very ill. It's been years that he's been missing. The whole movie, basically, Paris is missing, and his father doesn't know where he is because the time divergence. And the police are after Paris because they believe that he's a suspect in the disappearance of Anna because they don't know that Anna is his mom, obviously. And time travel is something that nobody would occur to them that this happened. Sadly, at the end, Paris does not make it back to his time of 2003, even though he finally, when he realizes that the little girl he took, that he saved in 1952 was his mom, he finally has some closure. But unfortunately, that closure doesn't end well for him because he drowns in the same lake But Ellie ends up getting back to her time, and she shows her mother the picture of Anna in 1952. And when her mother sees her face was scratched, she realizes that she was the girl that she fought in the market years ago. So mind blown. Like, this movie is it really trusts the viewer to do their work. It didn't explain anything, which was pretty awesome. It really made me think. I had to stop and like write people's names down. Ends up that everybody's basically related in this movie. And to the director Celine Held and Logan George, and they're also the writers. Like, they did an amazing job with this. Like, a lot of the thing that threw me off the most is a lot of movies that have twists don't delve this much into character development at the beginning. Like, the fact that Ellie and Paris, like, it felt like a drama, this movie at the beginning, not a thriller. It felt like a drama. Like, you really got into their stuff, like their drama, their trauma. And the fact that it was so slow at the beginning, I actually stopped this movie and came back and finished it. I didn't, because I thought it was going to be one of those family dramas, and I'm not really into those. But I'm glad I came back, because once the movie gets going, it really gets going. And it took so much time to flesh out Ellie's character and her home life and all the drama between her and her mom, and Paris's trauma from losing his mom in that drowning, that I would never expected this to be a time travel movie. Like it's masterful. It's definitely one of my favorite movies this year. I can see why M. Night Shyamalan wanted to produce this. This year he produced that other movie for his daughter, so I can see why he wanted to do this. This movie is definitely awesome. I think this is probably one of the best movies I've seen in a while. It really trusts the viewer to be a big boy and a big girl and to figure things out for themselves. The time travel aspect is done so well. It really just blows my mind. Like, the relationships that actually appear, that Ellie, her mom, this whole time was actually taking care of a stepdaughter who's really her brother-in-law. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. So Caddo Lake is definitely, I think it's a masterwork, and it's criminal that Max didn't send this to theaters. Like, a bigger audience should be exposed to this movie. This movie is awesome, and I really find it crazy that it didn't reach theaters. What did you think about Caddo Lake? Like, were you so blown away that the relationships just like make you stop? Wait a second, is this person? Like, did that happen to you as well? Put it in the comments. As always, that's just the Tone Show. Tone Show. Ah.